institution and uses, and RM. Yes, on public utilities, including equipment and supplies. And yes, on public.
The June 12, 2013 meeting of the Ascension Parish Zoning Commission will now come to order. Madam Secretary, please note that all commissioners are present. Item 3 is the acceptance of the minutes of the May 8, 2013 zoning meeting. What's your pleasure?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Nizo moves.
I'll second.
Mr. Ori seconds. Any objections? Minutes stand approved. Item number 4 is a public comment period for those items that are on the agenda but are not open for a public hearing. Any cards for agenda item number 4? Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 5 is chairman's comments. We have a number of concerned citizens in attendance for our meeting this evening. This commission welcomes your input as we consider the matters coming before us on our agenda. For those of you wishing to make a public comment for the record, please note the following. Please fill out a comment card identifying yourself and the agenda item on which you wish to speak. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. If the comments that you wish to make have already been made by a previous speaker, you may wish to indicate that you are in agreement with that speaker and you will be placed in the public record as such. This will allow the commission to acknowledge everyone's comments in a reasonable amount of time. We will be conducting public hearings and not pep rallies. This commission will arrive at its decisions based on the merits of your arguments, not on the volume of the audience's reaction to them. We know that these matters coming before us are very important to you, and we want to hear from you, but we ask that you assist us in maintaining the proper decorum of this public body. If you wish to make a public statement and you have not yet submitted a public comment card, please do so at this time. Agenda item number 6, a public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish Development Code zoning tables for recommendation for approval or denial to the Ascension Parish Council. The first one is zoning review ID 2315.13, Lot 91 of Old Hickory Wood subdivision for William Rieger. Identify yourself, please.
My name is Jim Bethay. I own the property adjacent to the lot that is being considered. We oppose this change basically because the property floods, and we have proof of the flood if anyone is interested to see it via pictures or even videos. We are afraid that if this zoning change happens, and it becomes mixed use, that a business entity would have more financial resource to raise or make a pad or raise whatever building was going to be on that property rather than a residential person, which is going to increase the flooding all the way down Old Hickory. My neighbor across the street almost floods. We have pictures. My house almost floods but doesn't. The house next to him almost floods but doesn't. So we're thinking that if a doctor's office or someone else comes in and puts a pad down to raise a business, building up out of the flood zone by, say, 3 feet, it's going to increase our water level by 3 feet. So we would like to propose that nothing happen until we get proper drainage in this area. And that's my argument.
All right.
We have pictures if you would like to see them.
Okay.
So this item, if you recall from last month's zoning commission meeting, we heard issues pertaining to the lots in the middle. This was an issue where, due to parish error, the zoning was changed on these lots. And if you recall during our discussion last month, to keep the lots as residential, there is no drainage requirements placed on residential zoning. However, if it's modified to commercial, like we did with the last month's zoning commission, through commercial development, they're required to do a drainage study, which would fix any drainage issues on the property and would require them to address all of those issues. This is another one of those lots.
Not necessarily fix the drainage issues, but more or less make sure that it doesn't get worse,
Correct.
I guess.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to give false hope.
Well, we would actually like to fix it.
I bet.
Yeah.
I understand.
Did you see the pictures? I'd just like to establish how bad it does flood, okay? Did you all see the pictures?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
There you go.
That's a canoe in my front yard.
So
That's my street.
when you say that drainage issues will be fixed, explain.
My
what that might be.
apologies, I misspoke. So through the drainage study, all water, on and off the site has to be, like, you can't create a commercial development that impacts or adds to the existing drainage flow, before the development. So they would be required, if necessary, to install, ponds and additional drainage structures on the property in order to show that, the drainage is not impacted by the development.
If the parish engineer would see fit to come meet me, I'll show you how to fix it.
Mr. Laurie?
So please give me a call.
Has the parish looked at these drainage problems yet? I mean, have you guys visited the site or the area to see what improvements can be made?
No. And I've been living there 18 years. I haven't seen a soul out there.
It definitely looks like a problem.
I don't know what our options are. Could we, is one option to put this, bring it back next month, but have a report from the parish drainage office to talk about this?
If that's your request, we can certainly dig into it some more and report back on what the existing issues are. Any proposed development will have to meet our current drainage ordinance requirements, which is to mitigate any impacts that their development would affect on the surrounding properties. And so as such, the code currently protects the adjacent property owners, but we can certainly investigate and find out what the existing issues are, and our review of the proposed development would ensure that we're not allowing something that exacerbates the issue. But if you want a more detailed understanding of what's causing the problem, then we can report back on that next month.
And if this remains residential, then there would be no such requirement if a house was built on it?
The individual residential units are not required to follow the drainage ordinance, no.
Okay.
So an individual could build a house 3 feet higher or whatever, add a bunch of fill to the land
Yes,
and
sir.
create the drainage problem.
They're still required to meet the field mitigation requirements, so they can't displace base flood elevation volume. That part is a FEMA requirement as part of the parish's participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. But the runoff mitigation would not be an element of that review.
Mike, I'd like to ask you, if I recall, these 3 lots, they were under an agreement by the homeowners association, if I recall from last meeting,
Yes, sir, that's
that they
correct.
could not be residential.
Well, and the
units
restrictions of the subdivision restricted those as commercial.
So
for those
basically,
lots.
if they stay like they are, it's useless land to them.
to them based on their restrictions.
Right. Okay.
It's going to be deed restrictions. It's going to be covenant restrictions of the
Right.
subdivision.
Original subdivision, right.
There are restrictions recorded in the courthouse?
Yes, sir, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And that could only be changed by unanimous vote of the,
It's going to
The
depend
lots?
on what the restrictions or what the covenant states. There's different ways. It could be all, it could be a percentage. I haven't looked at the restrictions. We don't enforce or restrict the covenants anyway, so, but according to what he stated and what he showed is that, yeah, those lots were deeded as commercial.
And this was rezoned through error?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the front's 44. And we looked at the map when we did the overall, and this area was missed. And we stated that we feel that it should be MU2.
okay.
And I think at the last meeting, Mr. Chafisi asked if, with these two, the applicant stated that the other two would be coming at a later date. This is one of those two. I haven't heard anything from the other owner, which is Lot 1, which is north of this property.
So it was 3 lots altogether that were
It was 4, actually. Yes, sir.
okay. Any other questions, comments of the commissioners? Okay, this requires a public hearing, so at this point, I will open the public hearing. We have cards on this one. Oh, okay,
Am I free to talk?
sure.
Okay. I wonder, just a couple of questions. Will the assessed value of the property go up or down with this rezoning?
This, I mean, you can make public comments. This is not a question-answer session. I mean, you can speculate, I suppose, but we're not in a position where you can ask us questions and we respond to you.
Okay, I understand. How can I find out the answer to that?
Get with the assessor's office.
Okay,
Homer's smiling.
The assessor's office can help you with
Assessor's
that.
office, thank you.
okay, yes.
I think that does me. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right,
Yes, sir.
okay. Any other cards? Okay, thank you. All right, I will at this point close the public hearing. Other comments, questions from commissioners? What is your pleasure on this?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to hold this off until, oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry. There's a time frame in which we have to get this information to the council, and that's going to be 45 days from the hearing. So I don't know if we'd meet that deadline by the time that we get to the next meeting or not, if you ask for an extension. And the applicant's not here to state if they want that, I guess, that pulled or extended.
I don't know, I feel like with last month and the other 2 lots, we kind of felt like we couldn't hold back the applicant from rezoning their property and hold them from, based on flooding. I mean, based on something that we can't control and out of our realm. I don't know. I kind of feel like we need to put a motion on the table to pass it as it's asked.
So you making that motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion
Mr.
to
Horry will make the motion to
accept
approve
rezoning it to MU2.
and recommend to Parish Council the rezoning to MU2. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Nizzo seconds. Any other questions, discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, the next 2 items were struck from the agenda, removed by the applicant, B and C. So we'll go to agenda item 6D, zoning review ID 2318.13, lot 147, square 16, Village of Darrow, for Torrey Scott. Is Mr. Scott present? As representative?
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Brundlin Scott. I'm Tori Scott's mother. I'm here to request for approval for lot 147 square 16 Village of Darrow for Tori Scott for a seafood restaurant. I have noticed I've been here before inquiring about the approval for a seafood business. Since then, I've inquired through the parish that it has been approved through the MU2 for service of good-oriented shopping and restaurant. I'd like to also mention that Darrow is a rural area, and why I have an interest in establishing a seafood restaurant business in that area is that it is rural, and because of the rural area, we're focusing on giving back to the community. My predecessors have always had a successful business, and they were blessed financially, but what's most important, because of their financial blessings, they were able to give back to the community. I anticipate retiring in June of this year. I look forward to promoting a seafood business, restaurant, that we can promote positive things in the Darrow area.
Okay, the property is currently zoned commercial, is that correct? I'm sorry, conservation.
Conservation,
I
yes.
see, conservation. And the request is to change the zoning to mixed use 2.
Yes.
And a similar request was made in 2011, and it was denied, is that correct?
It was denied, but since then it has been revised as approved through MU2 for restaurants and services and goods.
Okay. Approved by,
My son had gone to Lance, and it's told me to bring this to show that the restaurants and service good has been approved.
okay.
No, it was, I guess, a misunderstanding. I stated that mixed use 2 at the time that they may have made the request, we may not have that designation. And at that time, they had mixed use 2, which would allow restaurants and seafood. So at that point, they made the change or made a recommendation, not a recommendation, made a request to change it to MU2. And that's what that states.
Okay. And reading that staff recommends that we deny this request based on the surrounding property's existing uses. Explain, please.
It's basically all residential that's around there. Now, I don't believe it's the way Darrow's set up to have some type of center, I guess, or a commercial maybe in the center, which is this area is. But I can tell you that the last revision that we did to the map, Darrow was very vocal in which they wanted to stay the way that they were.
And perhaps so, but in spite of what some people have said in that area, we have gotten numerous signatures in agreement to establish a seafood restaurant and business. We've also contacted vendors that are interested in purchasing seafood in bulk, so it's a matter of opinion. I have signatures, my son has signatures in approval for this business.
Have you submitted those signatures to the
No, I
staff?
hadn't, this is my first step.
Okay. Questions of commissioners?
And we have hundreds of signatures for approval.
Ms. Scott, you, on your application, the purpose for request is to rezone to mixed use 2, and it states for a seafood market dash store. Is this a restaurant we're talking
Restaurant.
about, or is this a seafood
Restaurant.
market?
Seafood market / restaurant. We're interested in providing seafood for vendors, stores, restaurants, where we can sell it in bulk. In the meantime, people can come in and purchase seafood. And we have no local establishment of that kind in our area.
What are the non-conforming buildings in the area, Lance?
There are 3 mobile homes, residential dwellings on the property.
Why are they called non-conforming?
Because
Just
the
mobile homes?
density, it exceeds the density. The density is 3 units per acre, 1 unit per acre. So those homes are there, 3 on 1 lot, that wouldn't be allowed at this time, so they're non-conforming.
But perhaps if we could take one of them off, it's not mobile homes, there are houses established there. So if we need to remove one of those houses for approval, that could be done as well.
It looks as though the entire area is residential, though.
Yes, sir, correct.
Ready for public hearing?
Okay, any other questions of commissioners?
No, I'd like to hear both.
Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing. Do we have cards on this? Okay. All right, then I will close the public hearing. Any other comments, questions of commissioners?
Is this your family? I mean, this property you own?
Yes, sir.
No other location in the area that's more suitable for commercial, for a restaurant than this area? it is completely residential. Seems completely out of place.
Okay, but under the MU2, the
Yeah,
area.
it's not MU2, though, it's conservation now.
Okay,
It would have to be rezoned to MU2, that's why we're having the hearing.
okay. So
We'd have to rezone it to MU2, which would be a spot zoning for MU2 for that lot in order to put a restaurant on, and it's surrounded by residents.
But the residents in that area has already signed a petition in agreement to have that.
Well,
haven't seen that.
then I think you probably want to get residents to come and want to change the entire area to be, that entire block or that entire street to be zoned MU2, to allow what you're suggesting, because we don't have any evidence of
Okay.
anybody supporting this.
Okay, I have some signatures, but I have others. I can pass what I have. But in the meantime, I'd like to be rescheduled for people in that area to come and support what I've said.
Well, I would suggest that
Okay.
you withdraw this request for now until you can support it.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if I can even tell you what that means, except it would be completely spot zoning, completely inappropriate for this commission, I think, to take that one area and zone it MU2 so you can put a restaurant there, as much as I like seafood. It would just be inappropriate. I think you'd have to talk, I don't know, Ricky or Lance, would you take the entire block would that be,
Yeah, possibly, yeah, that would be the thing, to look at the whole block, but it would, to me, it would, to have a meeting or to have something with the community to see exactly what they would want, because Darrow is a community. It was set up really as a village and as a as Darrow. So I would think we would need to get with as many homeowners or landowners out there and see what they would like. I can see it possibly, like you stated, having a central and having some type of commercial, and then on the outskirts doing some things, because there's not many services that are out there.
sure.
Darrow is one of those master plan meetings that I remember quite vividly. And the comprehensive plan had a node at the intersection of the two highways that contemplated that being a village center, a little hamlet, as it were, of commercial. And I cannot stress how against commercial the residents of Darrow were. They did not want any commercial ever in Darrow. They were fine getting back to 44, heading north down 44 to get to the commercial that they wanted. They did not want commercial property zoned in Darrow.
Yeah, well, I would suggest one of two things. Either I'm going to recommend a denial of this, or you withdraw it and get your neighborhood together and
Okay.
come back and approach the commission with a
I
different
would certainly
plan.
do that, but I do have 2 signed copies of people from the Darrow area in agreement to opening the seafood market. If you'd like to see what I have, I'll be happy to share that with you, and at a later date, I can request another hearing.
Well, if you would leave that with the staff, so we can have that for next time. and
Sure.
Support your argument, and
Okay.
if you want to contact the staff, they can share with us what else you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
If you have any meetings or anything like that.
Okay, so Ms. Scott has withdrawn this request. That brings us to agenda item, it says 2 on here, but it's got to be 7, huh?
No, it's
Agenda
Two.
item 2, actually.
Item 2.
Well, it should be 7 there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, whatever number it is, it's a public hearing to consider a contract agreement for Ryan Rod LLC, located on the north end of Perkins Oaks Drive, to request a contract agreement. Let me explain before we get started. This is something that is a little bit different than what we typically do. We just had a request for a zoning change, and that zoning change is something that we would vote to recommend to the council, and they would have the final vote on. In this case, the petitioner is not requesting a zoning change. The request is for a use in a residential zone for a recreational facility. And it is permitted only with what's called a contract agreement. And we're going to go through what the contract agreement is, and we're going to specify what it means and so forth. But it is then that contract agreement has to be negotiated between the developer and the department, and it has to be approved by the zoning commission. And if that is all done, then he will have permission to proceed with the development. Okay, this is, excuse me. Okay, and petitioner, identify yourself, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Randall Dornier. I'm a part owner, and I'm representing Rainrod LLC.
Can you speak up just a bit?
If speaking to the microphone, please.
I'm sorry. I'm Randall Dornier. I'm one of the owners of Rainrod LLC. I'm representing them here tonight over the contract agreement for allowed usage under the zoning ordinance for a private tennis club. All the requirements have been met, and I'm asking for your approval.
Okay.
I do also have, I know that we have everything set up on the overhead, but I do have some hard copies, if I could pass those out, or have you pass my other article later.
Okay. We will just remain where you are. One of the requirements is that a meeting shall be held, attended by the director of the planning department or designee, zoning official or designee, the chairman of the planning and zoning commission or designee, the parish council member in whose district the development is proposed, representative of the Department of Public Works with the knowledge of the drainage needs, the engineering of the Department of Public Works, and these are the people who should be attendance in the meeting. What I'd like to do is get input, first of all, concerning that meeting, and of course, you made your presentation at that meeting. You were the person there representing Ryan Rod?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And from the department, I guess maybe Ricky, who would, can you kind of briefly summarize the meeting itself and what was discussed and what was finalized there?
Sure. We had the meeting and talked about the submittal. We had been discussing this package with the applicant and his engineer, excuse me, for a couple of months now. And so as that process culminated to being prepared for the public hearing, we scheduled the meeting. And in essence, the focus of that meeting is to discuss the two items of the contract agreement that we're basically here to discuss tonight. And the first is the drainage study, and the second is the traffic study. It is our interpretation that the private recreational facility is an allowed use within residential medium. We just approved one back in November for the VFW with a private baseball park with a contract agreement. So we felt that this is a similar type of use to that. The contract agreement limits the number of courts that the developer can have to 16. It limits the enclosed space to a very small office clubhouse so that he can conduct his operations there, schedule tennis classes, and it provides for the drainage for the impervious surface that he will be creating with that development. The contract agreement requires a traffic study, and hopefully your traffic engineer is here and he can answer any questions about that. But the basis or the results of that study were that the traffic counts are fairly insignificant for 16 courts. Any additional courts, any additional square footage, anything else will have to come back to this commission and most likely back to the council for a zoning change, because he understands, as well as we, that he can't do anything more than what this contract agreement states, which is 16 courts, 1,200 square foot building, and the parking required for those courts. And there's 4 indoor courts that are part of that plan, and that's where the majority of impervious surface comes from. So I would like to bounce it back to the applicant so that his engineer can speak maybe on behalf of the stormwater drainage study, and his traffic engineer can speak on behalf of the traffic study.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Aguilar. I prepared the drainage study for Mr. Dornier. Like I said, I have worked on this particular project since the get-go. He's asked me to provide survey services and engineering services for what was required. Previously, we went for a zoning change. That was denied or removed. That was denied. We are not asking for zoning change now. We are simply asking for the contract agreement, which states that we provide a drainage impact study with no impact to adjacent properties, which I have provided to the department. Mr. Tim Ward, I believe, they have all seen it and commented on it, and we have provided that along with the traffic study that has been done. I'd be happy to answer any drainage questions that anybody has.
Questions of any commissioner? Okay. The traffic study?
My name is Nick Ferlito with Neil Schaefer Incorporated. We did perform the traffic study for this particular project. The study was done in accordance with typical standards done for these types of projects. We collected existing counts at the intersection of Perkins Oak and Perkins Road to do a comparison of existing versus when the tennis courts are completed, and we generated traffic for those 16 courts. We did a future analysis based on that generated traffic. Our analysis shows that there was no significant impact to the operation of the signal on Perkins Road. We've addressed all comments from the parish on the study, and I'll take any questions concerning the study.
Okay, the study showed impact only during the peak times, I think 7 a.m. to 8:30, 9 maybe?
Yes, sir. Typically, the way these studies are done, that's the way we evaluate any type of development is during the peak hours, because that's when your heaviest traffic is on the adjacent roadways. Perkins Road, people leaving, going to and from work in the morning and afternoons. So those are normally the peak hours that the times that those studies are completed.
And a facility like this would have its peak traffic at other times. Is that correct?
It's possible. Therefore, if that were the case, then the impact on the local network would be less, because the traffic on the network would be less during a peak time.
But the traffic itself, on that road going in would be, and I'm thinking a tennis facility, the people there would be more after 9 o'clock, maybe even in evenings, but it would have an impact on traffic in the non-peak hours. Is that correct?
Well, you would be adding additional vehicles to the network in the non-peak hours, I'm
Right.
sure.
Okay.
But, there will be some traffic generated for the site during those peak hours as well.
All right.
And that's what was evaluated in the study.
How many additional cars would be on Perkins Oaks Drive in a day, based on your study?
Based on the trip generation that we use, which is a national publication, it indicates that the additional traffic will be about 490 vehicles, 500 vehicles per day.
A day?
Yes, and that's based on trip generation. Very limited studies have been done on these types of facilities. So, those numbers could be high. But from a analysis standpoint, that's the only tool we have to go by as far as generating traffic for this type of site.
Okay, I just want to make sure I heard what you said.
That's correct.
Okay.
400 additional cars per day on the street.
But if you look at the peak hour volume, what's during the AM and the PM, those volumes are very low. During the AM peak, it's an additional 20-something vehicles. In the PM, it's about 60 additional vehicles, 30 coming and 30 leaving in the peak hour. So a lot of that other traffic is coming during those off-peak times.
I got a question of the developer. Have y'all done any studies of optional access to this facility if it was allowed rather than going through Perkins Oak Drive?
Absolutely. That's the reason that we were denied a zoning change last time, and we're still working on getting access from Airline Highway.
And when was this zoning change
That
request denied?
was denied in December 13th of 2011.
Okay, so for 2 years now, we have still not found a possible option for an optional access.
We haven't found a feasible option, but
Feasible
we're still
option.
working on it.
Okay.
So you have intentions of adding an entrance to Airline Highway?
Absolutely,
You
we do, yes.
have intentions of that?
Could you commit to a specific time when that will happen?
Unfortunately, no. The land that's in between our land and Airline Highway is cost prohibitive right now. We are looking into partnering up with another business that would like frontage on Airline Highway and having a relationship with that business. That would be commercial on that road, and then we could share access from Airline Highway. And we've looked at all kind of different options as far as a land swap for a right of access through that land right there. But unfortunately, that land is, he's not willing to give a right of access or sell a right of access through it. He only wants to sell the land in toto.
So if you were pressed to come up with a date or any kind of agreement, at this point, there's none being negotiated at all?
With the owner of the land?
Right.
No, there is not.
Okay.
Question. This venture, this is a commercial venture.
No, sir, this is a private club. There will be no point of sale whatsoever on the club.
Exactly where is it located?
If I could, I think we have that on here. Steve, if you can go up there. And it's located on the northern end of Perkins Oaks Road. Do we not have the map on there?
No, we don't have it.
I don't have the overall site map.
I guess
I have
the
that
question
right
is
here.
this at or near an intersection?
Yes, it's, well, the club itself is not. It's at the end of the road. The intersection in question, there's a light at Perkins Oaks and Old Perkins Road.
I have a question
there is
for
a
the
light.
gentleman from Neil Schaefer. You mentioned the additional traffic on Perkins Oak in a day. What's the current traffic load on Perkins Oak in a day?
Based on our count, it's in the 400 vehicles per day range
Currently?
currently.
So this 16 courts, the first phase of this would double the traffic on Perkins Oak?
Based on the studies that have been done, it's possible, yes.
I can't picture, I mean, I
It seems
appreciate.
high to me as well. I mean, it seems like a high number for
Well, it
tennis
does, and
courts.
I know Neil Schaefer very well, and I know you guys do very good traffic studies.
Thank you.
That's kind of surprising. I can't quite picture it, but,
Right.
so it's based on a tennis facility with so many
Number
cars. I
of
mean,
courts.
parking's pretty limited there.
Right, it's
for
based
phase
on the
one.
number of courts, is
Courts,
the way
not-
that trip generation is done.
Okay.
But if you do look at the peak hour numbers, those peak hour numbers do represent more of what you would expect, because I think the parking is 80 parking spaces. If you look at the traffic generated in the PM peak, it's about 60 total vehicles coming and going during that time frame. So when you look at that, you say, well, that's more reasonable. But from a 24-hour period, it's, like I said, those are based on a limited number of studies, and, that could be a high number.
I have a question. Jasper, I heard you say the first phase,
Phase one.
there are additional phases
Not under this contract.
to this? So not
That's
under this
why
contract?
I asked if the traffic study was based only on Phase 1, 16 courts, because it seemed like a very high number.
So we would
Contract.
enter into, we would have to agree to another contract, I guess? If
It would
there
have to
is
be, for anything else, I think they'd have to ask for rezoning.
Yes.
I could answer that.
Oh, yes.
It's even stated in the contract. In the event that we are able to get access from Airline Highway, at that point in time, we will ask for a rezoning as a SPUD. And once that happens, then the access from Perkins Oaks would be shut off and used for emergencies only.
Okay, so you are limited to still
There's, yeah, exactly.
within this
We-
contract
this
with the
is all
16 courts? Okay.
Any other
Hear from
questions?
other people that were.
Yes, okay. What I'd also like to do, Councilman Satterley was also in attendance at the meeting. We'd like to hear words from him as well, and his, I guess, summary of what went on at the meeting. And before I do this, and I apologize, I typically recognize all the elected officials in attendance, and you are an elected official, so we welcome you, as well as Judge Lambert. Welcome to our meeting. Representative Lambert, thank you for your help in the legislative session this year. And, Councilman Satterley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll try to be brief. I've already promised you that. But I'm going to slow down a little bit because I'm from New Orleans and I tend to talk fast and people tell me they can't understand me sometimes. At least my wife does all the time. As you indicated, I was at the May 21st preliminary review panel meeting, and I wish this commission and the audience to know that I asked, would Rain Rod be running a business, which, as you well know, is not allowed under medium residential zoning. I asked them also, would the development, Bon Esperance, if that hasn't been announced yet, but I think we can see by the T-shirts that's what the development will be called. Would it be open to the public? And I was told by Mr. Dornier and our planning director, they both replied no to both of those questions. Instead, they stated that Bon Esperance would be, and I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, a private club, quote unquote, supported solely by dues-paying members, except for inexplicable reasons. I thought that vending machine sales, quote unquote, and the stringing of rackets, quote unquote, would somehow be allowed. And I think I've already heard just this evening, it sounds like there'll be tennis lessons as well. Commissioners, I didn't understand then, and why these special allowances, Coke machines and so forth would be made, and I still cannot comprehend them today. If it's not a business and we're not selling anything, why these special issues? I was also told at this preliminary meeting on May 21st, there would be no sales, because I asked it specifically, and I took copious notes, of tennis balls, rackets, clothing, any other accessories that goes along with the, and I'm going to call it sport, although a dictionary says it's a game, but I think it's both. I mean, that people compete. We even have professional tennis associations. But there would be none of this sales in the clubhouse. Instead, and I'll just borrow it from the exact words of our planning director, Bon Esperance would be similar, he said, to the Country Club of Louisiana in nature, unquote. Now, unlike the present proposal, I went to the website for the Country Club Louisiana, and there was a tab called the Tennis Club Pro Shop. And on that tab it says, in addition to charging the member dues, this pro shop sells dozens of items. They rent ball machines, baskets of balls. They offer instructor-paid lessons, and we just heard a little bit about that. And they charge guest fees for non-members to play.
Can I interrupt for a second? You're not on the clock, by the way, because we haven't opened the public hearing.
Right.
Mr. Sadler, we ask you to limit your comments to what the meeting was about.
That's
then
all
you can come back.
That's all I've done so far, Mr.
Well,
Jafisi, is
the
talk
research on Country Club of Louisiana.
Well,
was not at the
I'm
meeting.
making the point, sir.
Well, you can make your point during your 3-minute that you're allowed during the public hearing.
Give us a recap of the meeting,
Give us a recap
please.
of the meeting. We really do want to do that.
That's what I'm trying to do, honestly. Okay? That's what I'm trying to do. Okay? The contract agreement clearly states that it's between the Parish of Ascension and Rainrod LLC, not Mr. Dornier personally, and that Rainrod is a, quote, Louisiana corporation, and I stress the word corporation, organized under the respective laws of Louisiana, domiciled in East Baton Rouge Parish, unquote. That's in your contract, gentlemen. As such, it is considered to be a business entity. Indeed, the Secretary of State states that the Rainrod LLC is an active company doing business in Louisiana since 1993. So clearly, it's currently paying business taxes to the state in the East Baton Rouge Parish, and would, if Bon Esperance is approved, have to pay additional taxes on the revenues collected from dues paid by its members. And that was the point I was trying to make. It sounds like a business to me. Furthermore, if Ascension Parish believes and wants to enter in this contract agreement that the Rainrod Bon Esperance relationship will not be a business because they will not be selling anything but a few Cokes, then the parish needs to recognize that we will be receiving only a very small amount of business sales taxes, largely from member dues for this alleged, quote, East Baton Rouge chartered non-business. This begs the issue of why should we approve such an enterprise when the only other additional revenue stream the parish would realize from Rainrod is from the added small property taxes gained from property improvements, monies which would not nearly compensate for the extra burden that this development would place on our already overly strained infrastructure, particularly the increased deterioration one could expect.
Again,
from
Dr.
Perkins Oak
Satterley,
Road.
is this, was this discussed in the meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
I told him all this stuff. At the review panel meeting, I also asked Mr. Dornier to see his business plan. This may interest you. He replied that he would, quote, rather not share it at this time. This again indicates that Bon Esperance will in fact be a business, else why would he have a business plan? I'm also concerned about the issue of alcohol. Now, I brought this up, all of these things I brought up at the meeting. I was concerned about the issue of alcohol. Mr. Dornier said at the meeting, no alcohol would be sold. Although he reluctantly admitted that there would be nothing, I asked him this, stopping members or their guests from bringing alcohol to the facility and consuming it on site. For this reason, I told him, as the councilman for District 4, I would never sign a liquor permit for Rainrod as long as he remains intent to use the subdivision road Perkins Oak Drive to enter and exit Bon Esperance. When I suggested, however, and this is very important, commissioners, that he might be able to get a higher-up official to sign this liquor permit, Mr. Dornier, at the meeting, expressed clear interest in the process of how this might be done, saying, and I quote, so all I have to do is check with Chris to get alcohol. This again suggests to me that the sale of alcohol is likely in that business plan that he would not share. For the record, alcohol was in the business plan back in 2011 when it was turned down for rezoning. A couple more comments. This is not from the meeting, but in rebuttal to what they said. Is that appropriate at this time, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I heard the idea of 400 more cars per day from the Murmanus courtroom. It sounds like a few more did. A few more people heard that as well. I would like to submit there are about 54, if I'd be exact, give or take a house or two, because I've walked that street more than once, not just campaigning. That means that if you figure 2 cars, and I've heard this commission talk about that before, per household, that's 100 cars. 100 cars, gentlemen. Yet, whether we believe these numbers or not, their numbers, not mine, 400 cars will be there daily, going north and southbound, north entering, southbound coming out of this development on Perkins Oak Drive. Well, that's a 400% increase. That's astounding to me. The traffic study, I remind you, is also based only on 16 courts. We just went over that, okay? And, of course, that's not at full build. So if we don't get off the airline highway, obviously these 400% could be, 16 courts become 47, at 48 equally divisible by 3, 1,200%. One more point. I just heard the developer.
And make it brief, please, because you've gone
Yes.
well over the time limit that we agreed to.
Okay, my last statement, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, that there were no negotiation with owners on US 61, the major highway property, to explore the possibility of coming off airline instead of going through Perkins Oak Road. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for those comments.
Thank you.
Any commissioner have a question or comment for
Well, just
any
one
presentations?
point of clarification.
Okay.
I think the gentleman from Neil Schaefer stated, Councilman Satterley, that the current, well, I asked him the question, what's the current traffic count, just given the residents, and he said it was 400, about 400. In other words, the traffic, he suggests, although he believes it might be a high number, would be doubled, not quadrupled. I guess with 52 homes and 2 cars at each home and several trips a day, because we're talking about trips, we're not talking about, So, just that point of clarification.
Okay. Any other comments before we open the public hearing?
I'm kind of wondering about this official definition of point of sale, how that's being handled and addressed with something that's not commercial. I mean, is there going to be, does a vending machine qualify as point of sale?
I'm not a lawyer, so
I guess that is a question for legal.
But we did not bring up anything about a vending machine. The meeting was supposed to be about 30 minutes. I think it ended up being about 3 hours. They talked about a lot of things, but now the lessons did come up as far as it's providing a service on residential property. The same is done
all throughout the parish right now with piano lessons, or if you had a tennis court in your backyard, you can give lessons out there. It's really no different than that. We never said that we would try to get any kind of alcohol license under this. And if you read the contract, we can anyway, even if we were going to try. If I could rebut one thing. According to Mr. Satterley's argument, any business in Louisiana that buys residential land would then be operating a business on that land? Or can businesses not buy residential land? Thanks.
I think we already established that, Ricky, we established that this is a private, we have a precedent of allowing recreation, a private recreational facility. So does this differ appreciably from the previous, any previous ones we've allowed?
With use, no, sir.
Okay. I have a question. I'm a tennis player, and there's a bunch of tennis players here. How many of you drink alcohol before, during, or after you play? Immediately after you play? Anybody? Does anybody drink alcohol immediately during you play? One person? Okay, that's about 5%. Okay. Curious, because I play a lot of golf, a lot of drinking goes on at a golf course. I've never seen anybody bringing alcohol out to a tennis court, but I'm sure it could happen, but it wouldn't be a particular concern of mine, but curious about that.
Okay, any other questions of commissioners? Okay. At this point, we expect a rather lengthy public comment period. I will say again that if a comment has been made that you just strictly agree with, we can put you on the record as saying I agree with so-and-so, because if we have 100 people and they each take 3 minutes, that's going to be 5 hours. And we will listen to every public comment, every person that requests a public comment. But if you could help us with being expeditious, we would certainly appreciate it. Would you hand me the comment cards, please? Okay, first is Diana Satterley.
Good evening. My name is Diana Satterley, and I would like to read a redacted letter written by Mr. Rob McCarley, who regrets he could not be here tonight. The Preserve Historic Perkins Road Association stands unified in our resolve to oppose the proposed contractual agreement that would result in an unsafe, high-traffic situation for the residents, many whom are young children who play near and in the streets of this family-oriented neighborhood composed of more than 60 homes. The 30-plus acre site, owned by Rain Rod, is adjacent to and surrounded by 9 neighborhoods containing more than 400 homes and over 1,000 voters associated with our association. It is insulting to the residents of this area that a residential piece of property was purchased by Rain Rod, full well knowing that the owners did not have access to US 61, the proper access road to the property. One of the major reasons the Parish Council unanimously denied the 2011 rezoning request for this property is because of the lack of proper access. The Rain Rod owners originally stated that they had obtained access from US 61, and at the negative December 2011 Parish Council vote, it was revealed that the owners did not have such access. To this point, Randall Dornier stated at a May 5th, 2011 meeting with adjacent and neighboring property owners, quote, "We have met with adjacent property owners on Perkins Oak Road. We are promising not to access the property through their neighborhoods. There are locked gates at the end of Perkins Oak and Manchac Lane adjacent to the property, and I'm going to keep these gates locked as much as possible to prevent unauthorized access through those streets. Thus, it is appalling and shocking that he promised not access through the adjacent neighborhoods, and now the parish is rubbing this in the nose of those same neighbors by entering the Rain Rod into a contract which specifically contains the access point as Perkins Oak Road. Approval of the proposed contract would also lead to a public safety hazard and would yield an untenable traffic scenario at the Perkins Oak Walmart Old Perkins intersection, leading to very dangerous situations for the young children on Perkins Oak Road. There will be more traffic on a street that was not designed for such. Furthermore, the later phases of the Rain Rod project would require the trucking out of hundreds of truckloads of feces-contaminated dirt on Perkins Oak and Old Perkins roads. This presents yet another real danger of exposing developing bodies of children to toxic particles emanating from truckloads of fecal-laden waste. This is not some fantasy. At LSU, we researched the exact problem and have found rates of asthma and respiratory challenges increase in mammals upon their exposure to such airborne particles. As both our public representatives and our fellow parish residents, we ask that you give every sincere consideration to our opposition. Thank you and regards, Rob McCarley, President, Preserve Historic Perkins Road Association. I would like to enter this letter.
Thank you. And by the way, if you are going to give a prepared statement, please submit your letter to the secretary. Next, we have Deanna Mangano Nelson.
Mrs. Stacy Aguilar regrets that she could not be here tonight and asked me to read her signed letter into the record. Per your request, it's pretty much everything that was just said. If you'd rather me not repeat it all over again, I'm more than happy to just present the
That
letter.
would be very helpful. If
The man said no. I'm sorry.
I didn't, I agreed with
You
that.
have 3 minutes if
You-
you want.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is not the first attempt by Rainrod to build a tennis facility on the 36-acre tract listed in present contract with Ascension Parish. On May 3rd, 2011, my daughter Natalie and I attended a neighborhood meeting at Greg White's office with Mr. Dornier, who asked for our consent to develop a tennis facility. Mr. White is a resident of Plantation Court Drive in Belle Grove, and his property backs up to the 36-acre tract at issue. All neighbors who attended that neighborhood meeting at Mr. White's office, including myself, were opposed to the tennis facility having a main entrance or even a passage gate onto a residential neighborhood street. At that time, Mr. Dornier told us that the facility would not access any subdivision as their main entrance. He said their main entrance would be from Airline Highway. At that time, I was concerned about possible access to Mancheck Lane at the end of the Belle Grove subdivision. At this rebirth of the tennis court rezoning proposal, the residential neighborhood Perkins Oaks Drive is targeted as the main entrance to the facility. The only way I learned of this new proposal is from emails from my councilman, Doc Satterley. Over the past week, I have gathered petitions from my neighbors on both Mancheck Lane and Plantation Court Drive against the rezoning of the same property for the same proposed purpose that was previously rejected 2 years earlier. Every household on Mancheck Lane and every house adjacent to and backing up to the proposed tennis complex on Plantation Court Drive signed the petition opposing the proposed tennis development, whose main entrance would be located on the north end of Perkins Oaks Drive. Please do not accept the contract between Rainrod LLC and Ascension Parish. I am very concerned with the true intentions, and according to the contract with Ascension Parish, every 3 months they can come before you to amend or cancel the contract. It would be very challenging for busy families coming to commission meetings every 3 months to find out what is being done to the property behind their homes. And please put this in the record.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Next, Mr. Claude Hernandez.
Can y'all hear?
Yes. Identify yourself, please, for the record.
Okay. My name is Claude Hernandez. I live at 18566 Red Oak Drive. The master plan that was adopted 15 years ago states at 17-3011 at A on the roadway master plan on page 34, quote, as Ascension Parish continues to grow, its existing infrastructure is being pushed to the limit. The most obvious indication of this problem is the increased traffic in the northern portion of the parish, where I'm a resident. More new traffic signals are being installed. Longer waits at intersections are experienced. Entering and exiting from subdivisions onto collectoral and aerial streets is more difficult, and development on narrow rural roads is causing unacceptable safety hazards. The Neo-Safer traffic data shows that evening peak traffic going through the affected intersections at Perkins Oaks and LA 427 Old Perkins Road is currently level of service of E. What does this mean? For comparison's sakes, a LOS of A typically describes free traffic flow operations, which we all would like to have. Well, unfortunately, we have a level of service. E describes operations at full capacity. A LOS traffic flows at or above the posted speed limit. All motorists have complete mobility between lanes. But LOSE flow becomes irregular and speeds varies rapidly because there are virtually no posted limits, making maneuver through the traffic streams impossible. The average speed between vehicles at 500 feet or 27 car lengths is a level of, say, service A. Everybody wants that because accidents and breakdowns are easily absorbed. While level of E vehicle spacing.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Next, Mr. Scott Sayer. Just enter that into the record, please. Mr. Scott Sayer.
My name is Scott Sayer. I live at the end of Perkins Oak Drive,
Yeah.
and I'm more concerned about the traffic, and most of these people are going to comment about that. But I'm also concerned about, if anybody knows the street, it is a very narrow neighborhood street, and you're talking about big trucks up and down the road. Well, after he destroys the road, who's going to fix it? Okay? And others are going to comment about this. Also, I have copies of the little handout that we got years ago, and I'm going to leave you the copies. We're going to put this in the public record, okay? There's copies for them. Wait, one more. There we go. I'd like to enter that into the public record. But he promised we weren't going to have access on Perkins for the traffic, and now he wants it. He'll also probably come back and want more, and I'll be here to argue. So I hope you take this in consideration, that the people on Perkins Oak do not want any part of this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next, Mr. James Bollinger.
Thank you so much.
My name is James Bollinger. I'm at 18596 White Oak Drive. I'm going to talk a little bit about drainage, but I wanted to give you a little map that you have in front of you so that I could admit to you my prejudices in this addressing you about drainage, okay? I was raised in the Ninth Ward of New Orleans. I was there at Betsy. I was in Chalmette for Katrina. So I have, you understand when I have a...
Speaking to the microphone, please.
When I have a less than reverential belief in the precision of the rules and the regulations of any parish or federal engineering group. Okay? I say that not because I want to belittle anyone. We all have to work under constraints. But I would say to you and ask that you err on the side of caution. You see how close I am to the floodplain? You have people in the neighborhoods that are in the floodplain. Why was that ever allowed to happen? Chalmette should have never been allowed. I do have some questions about the drainage study that's been submitted. I am not a hydrologist, I am not an engineer, but I am the comptroller of the Orleans Levee District, and I've sat on that, by that board, not on the board, but sat with the board for 7 years and listened to the Corps of Engineers, and there were engineers coming out all over the place. That doesn't make me an expert. But these folks are telling us we're not going to have any more runoff. They use a map that is dated 2007. Is there not a new map? Aren't we all hearing about new maps, 2013? So how would they change the ideas then? If I understand correctly, on page 3 of the drainage study, the petitioner is suggesting that runoff into the ponds is going to offset additional runoff from the the non-permeable addition. However, the ponds are all less than the base flood elevation, every one of them. And so one thinks that when there's a real big storm, the whole thing is going to flood. The ponds are going to flood. They're not going to hold any additional water. So I think I'd like to know if that's a legitimate argument, that they can use ponds, or if I've misconstrued what's in this report. I don't think the ponds will mitigate anything. The point I'm trying to make is, we all know it's a floodplain, they want to put stuff on. It's going to divert water to us.
Thank you, Mr. Bollinger. Next, Dr. Carrie Aguillard.
Good evening, Chairman and Councilman. Thank you for letting me talk. My name is Dr. Kerry Aguillard. I live at 18764 Plantation Court Drive, near the proposed Bon Esperance Tennis Complex development. I want you to know that there are about 294 homes between the railroad tracks that cross Old Perkins Road and Perkins Oak. This is the street that is proposed as the entrance to the Bon Esperance. Also, I have some signed petitions that we have gathered from the residents, 293 signatures. The residents have signed the petitions, represent citizens who live in this area, and are within 8 subdivisions of the Old Perkins Road. Among these signatures are a state representative, the parish council for the district where the development is proposed, and a member of the Board of Adjustments. All who have signed the petition live within 0.4 of a mile of the intersection of LA 427 and Perkins Oak Road. The streets canvassed include Perkins Oak Road, White Oak Drive, Red Oak Drive, Plantation Court, Manchac Lane, Greenbrier Avenue, Magnolia Estates, Crepe Myrtle, Audubon Court, Shadow Court, and Old Perkins Place Road. I repeat, of the 294 homes nearby the affected Walmart intersection, we have gathered 293 signatures obtained. These are remarkable numbers and represent the majority of the residents in this area. We have all serious concerns about the traffic congestion and whether there's going to be safety concerns as well, as mentioned earlier, so I won't go into that. Almost without exception, anyone who was at home had signed these petitions. It is my opinion that the number of signatures would have been even higher had everyone been home. Make no mistake, we do not want this development in our area. Thank you, and I'd like to enter these signatures as document.
Sure,
record.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I do not believe I'd need to recuse myself. However, I do need to state for the record that Dr. Aguillard is an employee of a physician practice, and I am the CEO of that physician practice.
Okay. Full disclosure.
Thank you.
Can I ask Dr. Aguillard a question about what his statement, just for my own, well, for everyone's interest, I guess. The petition that you had signed, what did it state? What was this? What was the language? Well, yeah, I mean, if it's
And-
very
and
lengthy.
I did not have time to gather these personal signatures, so this is not my work, but a collection of neighbors that gathered these signatures.
What were they asked to sign?
Including my wife.
What were they asked to sign?
The petition reads, "We, the undersigned, are in opposition to the tennis complex proposed by contractual agreement between Rainrod LLC and Ascension Parish, and do petition the Parish Zoning Commission at their June 12, 2013 meeting to please reject the proposed development located on the north end of Perkins Oak Drive."
So,
Thank you.
was it referring to, it sounds like it's referring to what's referred to or what's called Phase 1, the Phase 1 development? Or is it referring to what they would ultimately like to see on that property if they could get everything they wanted? You know what I'm saying? 'Cause
It just against the contract that's being proposed tonight.
Okay, the 16 courts, what
Yeah.
we're talking about tonight.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. John Tony Boswell Jr.?
Good evening. My name is Tony Boswell, and I live at 18406 Perkins Oak Road, the street most affected by this proposal. Why were my friends, neighbors, and myself not informed by the parish of the proposed development? This negligence on the part of the parish is inexcusable. I am very strongly opposed to this proposed contract. The recent major street plan you recommended in March that was adopted in April by the council this year as Appendix 8 in the code now states as 3 of its objectives. Number 1, identify the functional role of each street should be designed to serve in order to promote and maintain the stability of traffic and land use patterns. Perkins Oak Road is currently a local street. The definition of a local street consists of all roads not defined as arterial or collectors. Primary provides access to land with little or no through movement. According to the numbers taken from the developing engineer's traffic on the street will increase 110% on average during the morning and afternoon peak rush hours. This will not maintain stability of traffic in our area. Informing citizens of the streets that are intended to be developed as arterial and collecting streets so that private land use decisions can anticipate which streets will become major traffic facilities in the future. Our subdivision road will become the entrance and exit of a private business. Why not zones meant to protect our residents from this kind of commercial development? We are zoned RM, not mixed use. Number 3, minimizing the negative impact of street widening and construction on neighborhood areas. In the present proposal, Perkins Oak Road will be the only entrance and exit to the development. After the construction of each phase of the proposed tennis facility, will the people be expected to pay through Ascension Parish government for the damages done to our property? The entire contract and the associated proposals contradicts our codes and laws, will affect our safety and property values, disrupt what is left of our quality of life, and make it next to impossible to get out of our subdivision. The proposal is inappropriate. Airline Highway is the only acceptable alternative.
Thank you, Mr. Boswell. Next, Ms. Charlotte Allen.
Good evening. My name is Charlotte Allen. I live on Manchac Lane in Bell Grove subdivision. On page 72 of Appendix 2 in the Development Code related to contractual agreements, item J under procedure, it states, "The zoning commission shall take one of the following actions upon closing of the public hearing. 1, accept the contract as submitted. 2, accept the contract subject to specified conditions not included in the contract as submitted. 3, reject the contract. Those are the 3 legal options. Commenting on the contract presently under your proposal, in the contract section 17-195, amendment or cancellation of contract at C, it states, following the public hearing, the Zoning Commission may approve an amendment to the contract if it is consistent with the master plan. The contract is inconsistent with the master plan in the following points. Appendix 3, page 4. It violates Principle 1, which states, protect the public safety and property values by providing adequate separation of industrial, commercial, and residential uses. Public safety issues arise in 4 areas. At B, on page 5, the second major public safety issue involves increasing traffic volumes on the parish roads. Ascension Parish operates with largely rural road system. Roads and road beds are narrow. Higher traffic volumes on these roads increases the likelihood of serious accidents. The Rain Rod Tennis Facility in Phase 1 is inconsistent with the master plan as it will more than double traffic volumes and increase the likelihood of serious accidents on an already congested road. Please reject this contract, protect the safety of our citizens and the principles of the master plan. I thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you. Ms. Catherine Tingle.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Tingle. I am reading comments for Doug Badon. He was not able to attend the meeting. He lives off Old Perkins Road, approximately 4/10 of a mile from the affected intersection. Please enter his contact, his comments into the public record. Commissioners, in your deliberations, please consider the following guidelines in the master plan. Page 30 at D states, when presented with a challenge to the land use regulation, courts generally exercise judicial restraint. However, where local regulations are set aside by the courts, their invalidation can be traced to several common errors. Numbers 3 states, quote, the plan has not been followed. Page 31 at 3 states, procedural due process challenges will be brought if the parish council and the planning commission fail to follow clear process or rushes to judgment on the land use decision. In these cases, the planning commission may violate the rights of involved parties to receive notice, be given an opportunity to be heard, to enjoy the benefits of a deliberate and thoughtful process on the part of the planning commission. Page 32 AF1 states, determine the public purpose of the standard for which an interpretation is required before any zoning interpretation is made. There must be an explicit identification of the purpose for which the initial regulation was imposed. Each zoning regulation is intended to protect the interests of both present and future neighbors and the general public. Commissioners, in your deliberations, please answer the following 3 questions. Do you want me to read them? Okay. The first one, what are the benefits to the parish and the people versus the burden of increased traffic to nearby subdivisions and businesses? Number 2, why is the developer intruding on the residents of the adjacent subdivision when he can gain access off of Airline with adjacent property that is presently for sale? Number 3, why is the parish willing to cut a deal called contractual agreement with the developer over the will of the people? Don't forget, both the commission and the council denied this development in 2011. I would like this put in.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Sharon Sanders.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Sharon Sanders. I live at 18506 White Oak Drive. Why anyone would want to play tennis next to a 4-acre sewer treatment pond is beyond me. Yet this is what the developer, Mr. Dornier, is proposing. This second proposal smells as much as his first proposal. Phase 1 of his Bon Esperance, translated, means good hope, may be yet another effort to scam Ascension Parish and its residents. His first effort failed in 2011 when he requested a rezoning from medium residential to mixed use. Then he said he wanted tennis courts and a restaurant to sell alcohol. No plans were presented. Both the commission and the council denied his rezoning request. Today, we have his current plan showing 16 tennis courts next to a 4-acre sewer lagoon on low-lying property bordering Bayou Manchac. C. Joseph Cascio, Jr. gave a perpetual servitude to density utilities for operation, maintenance, and management of the sewer system located on the property that serves Perkins Oak subdivision in a contract dated March 26, 2009. I would like to enter this into the public record. Additionally, I wish to read into the record a portion of a letter dated December 1st, 2011 from Miller L. Heath III, President of Density Incorporated. My husband, Will Sanders, will follow me and finish reading. In 2009, Density acquired a large number of sewer plants in and around Ascension Parish. These systems were suffering from severe deferred maintenance and were out of compliance with numerous environmental health and safety codes. As part of this acquisition, Density acquired the sewer system which serves the Perkins Oak subdivision. This system consists of a pond, piping, manholes, and lift station attached to the pond running throughout the subdivision. This system is unusual in that Density does not own the land underlying the system. Rather, we have a perpetual servitude which allows the company use of the land. Should the land not be used for sewer treatment in the future, then the use of the land will revert to the use of the owner. However, such an eventuality is virtually impossible unless a centralized treatment system is installed by the parish. I am opposed to the contract and to the development.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. Next, Mr. William Sanders.
In the late spring, I was contacted by phone by a gentleman who stated he was the new owner of the property, a Mr. Rod, in parentheses, question mark. He asked if Density would be willing to discuss conversion of the pond system to a packaged plant system. We would then and remain willing to discuss any such conversion. However, I was informed the gentleman then, any such transaction must be approved by the pertinent state regulators. I also informed him that any such conversion would be at his cost and that it could not increase the on-running operations cost of the utility customers. I informed him that all technology of which I am aware is extraordinarily expensive. This is particularly true as environmental requirements tighten in the area. He mentioned that he had an associate who was going to sell him a previously installed package plant for cheap. I informed him that Density would not agree to any plan that utilized the used plant. Any conversion plan that is proposed must be cost neutral to the customer of the company. This means that the installation cost must be borne by the landowner and that future operational costs must be the same or less than the current system. He also mentioned that he wanted to move the lift station. As I explained then, moving a lift station is difficult, bordering on the impossible. To do so would most likely require the design and implementation of a second lift station. Such a step would increase the operational cost, and Density cannot agree to such a plan if a plan is proposed which meets the requirements outlined here and is approved by the Louisiana Public Service Commission, the Department of Environmental Quality, and the Department of Health and Hospitals. We will gladly discuss the option. However, at this time, there is no agreement between Density and any party in regards to changing the system. I am not a lawyer, but it is my understanding that under the St. Julian Doctrine, the latest state law that upholds it and the servitude cannot be altered without the affirmed consent of density. Further, I believe that without regulatory approval, any such agreement or consent would be invalid. Signed, Miller L. Heath III, President, Density Incorporated. I'd like to also enter this in the record.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Next, Mr. Greg Mascarella.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Greg Mascarella. I live at 18535 Perkins Oak Road. My comments will continue with the present proposal violations of the master plan. Please enter my comments into record. The contractual agreement is inconsistent with the master plan on page 21 at 6, deteriorating traffic safety and excessive traffic congestion. With few exceptions, the road structure in the parish is designed for rural areas. Increasing traffic on inadequate roads increases delays and accidents. These problems are acute in several traffic corridors in the northern section of the parish. It is undeniable that the traffic on Old Perkins Road is excessive and congested without this development. The problem is acute, and you will more than double traffic on my subdivision street, Perkins Oak Road, during peak traffic hours. I live this every day. When people are leaving Walmart and unable to turn left because of the slow light on Perkins Oak Road, they go straight through the intersection, enter Perkins Oak Road and my street, and when they get to the end, they realize there's no through street. They turn around in the cul-de-sac and punch it all the way back to the stop sign at Old Perkins Road. This is dangerous, not just for our children, but for anyone driving in our subdivision. Perkins Oak Road is very narrow, and our homes are close to the roads. Our street is part of a playground of the children and my grandchildren. Do not approve this contract. On the other part of this is y'all were asking about increasing the traffic. I don't think these people, these engineers really, they sat that thing down there for 2 days. I live on the street, I saw it. They don't take into consideration what happens from Walmart. That Walmart thing adds a lot to it. You're gonna add it on one end, then you're gonna add it on the other end. Another thing, these people do not live in our area. They're not paying attention to our kids. It takes one kid to walk out in that street and one of them to be doing 45 miles an hour, and it ain't gonna be a pretty sight, because it will happen. We've had 2 sheriff deputies come and park in my property to watch the traffic. As soon as they're gone, people hit that thing, go to the end, and by the time they're at my street, they're 50. They're gonna be coming off of a gravel road, hitting a hard top. I'm telling you right now. You talk about drinking, they may not be drinking, but they're gonna be tired and they're gonna be wanting to get home. When they hit that hard top, it's gonna be metal to the floor. Boom. I see it every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cheryl White.
Thank you. I am a resident of Belgrove subdivision, Lot 14, adjacent to the Rainrod property. We did not receive notification of the initial rezoning in 2011. Now, due to 125 feet of unbuildable property, we're no longer considered adjacent property owners. And as such, got no notification that this was going on. Is 125 feet sufficient to negate the effects of this development on our neighborhoods? Dampen sound, shield the light, and is it fenced sufficiently, not wire, to protect the entrance of non-authorized people into it, opening our homes and yards up to trespassers? My husband and I held the meeting at our office with Mr. Dornier and concerned residents. He assured us that there would be no access through any of our neighborhood streets. Now, he's here asking for just that, asking for your approval to do just that. Why? Access from off of Airline is too expensive? If he gets approval to enter on Perkins Oaks, will they ever go back to Airline access? Traffic will increase on Perkins Oaks Road. when the facility is operational, but also during construction, and the street is not designed for that. It's narrow and children are out playing. Who's to gain from this contract? I suggest to you that it's Rainrod, wanting to operate a private dues-paying business, not your current residents.
Thank you. Ms. Ramona Boswell.
Good evening. My name is Ramona Boswell, and I live at 18406 Perkins Oak Road. I am speaking in opposition to the proposed contract. I would like to place several documents into the record of this public hearing. One, the act of cash sale showing that Rainrod LLC purchased on December 16, 2010, 33.522 acres for $800,000 cash from C. Joseph Cassio, Jr. 2, a document stating that the members of Rainrod LLC are Randall N. Dornier, Thomas Ryan Dornier, and Randall Newton Dornier, Jr. 3, the zoning packet of 7/13/2011 with the original application by Rainrod LLC requesting rezoning from RM to mixed use of 25.943 acres of tract 7A1A. Please note in the staff comments then. At 5, RM quote, commercial development in this district should be limited and located at highway intersections. At 6, quote, the requested property will have access off Airline Highway. The access will be between Tract I and Tract J of the Duplessis Land Company, LLC. The staff made no recommendation in 2011 and is making no recommendation today. The Zoning Commission rejected the rezoning on 7/13/11, and the Parish Council unanimously did the same thing on 12/19/11. The access for this development is no longer from Airline Highway, but is clearly now proposed through Perkins Oak Road, my subdivision street. We live near the intersection of Highway 427 at the front of the subdivision. I shudder to think of how I will be able to get out of my driveway. In the summer, young people walk up and down the street to the convenience store because we don't have sidewalks. I've lived on Perkins Oak Road for 20 years and do not want to see our road torn up by heavy construction vehicles. Please deny the request for this contractual agreement between Rainrod LLC and the Parish of Ascension. Thank you. I'd like to put this in the record.
Thank you, Ms. Boswell.
Can I ask one quick question of
Yeah.
Ms. Boswell? Ms. Boswell, I'm missing the point about the act of cash sale. What's your point about that?
It's just for the record.
Well, are you suggesting, I mean, they own the property, right?
Right.
Okay, so why provide the act of cash sale?
Just for the record.
I just thought I was missing a point you wanted to make about it.
No, no
Okay.
point.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Chris Mascarella.
My name is Chris Mascarella, and I live at 18535 Perkins Oak Road. I enjoy having my grandchildren over, and I'm opposed to this contract because it will jeopardize the safety of the children who play in our front yards. Opening up our dead-end street to provide access to a business when better options are available makes no sense. It's hard for me to believe that this is even being considered. The contract is inconsistent with the master plan. It violates Principle 2 on page 6. Manage growth, encourage growth only in areas in the parish which can support with adequate soil, drainage, and physical infrastructure at B and C. Managed growth encourages public and private development investment to following the guidelines, principles of this master plan. Managed growth means the decisions of the Planning Commission and the Parish Council will be made in concert with the land's natural carrying capacity. The parish's ability to financially support development through the provisions of infrastructure and related community services and facilities, and the desire of the parish residents for additional growth and development. Managing growth involves balancing individual properties' interests with the interests of neighbors and the other residents of the parish. The Planning Commission will minimize the adverse impacts on individual property owners. The parish is unable to provide adequate infrastructure now. Will they be able to fix the subdivision street once it's destroyed? How will the parish bring safety to our streets where our children and grandchildren play and ride their bicycles? The residents from surrounding subdivisions are overwhelmingly opposed to this development. Our desires are to be included and considered. There's only one access to this proposed tennis complex that will minimize the adverse impact on our families. Require the developer, Mr. Dornier, to get the access he needs for his business from Airline Highway. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jody Davis. I'm sorry, Judy Davis.
Good evening. My name is Judy Davis. I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor for approximately 34 years, and I've lived adjacent to this subdivision for 30 years. We're in an older, well-established subdivision, as Perkins Oaks is. In 2011, Mr. Dornier asked for a zoning change from residential to mixed use of this same property in order to build a tennis complex. Both the Zoning Commission and the Ascension Parish Council denied that request, the latter by a unanimous 8-0 vote. I received a notification of the public hearing in 2011 and testified then. However, I and several other adjacent property owners have not received a certified letter giving notice of tonight's public hearing. In fact, had it not been for Councilman Satterley, I would not have known about this hearing tonight. Today, Mr. Dornier wants to enter into a contract with the parish to build tennis courts. In Appendix 2 of the Ascension Unified Development Land Code, under Development Code, page 72 of 130 at point J, or dot J dot, it reads, upon the negotiation of a contract, the same shall be presented to the Zoning Commission for approval and shall be presented in a public hearing to the Zoning Commission. Notice of said public hearing shall be provided to adjacent property owners. The property lines separating the newly proposed rain rod development and adjacent subdivisions have not changed. Thus, the neglect in notifying myself and the other adjacent property owners is in violation of our laws that make this hearing out of order. Why did I receive notice in 2011 and not in 2013? Is the zoning department cutting corners, cutting costs, trying to prevent adjacent property owners from exercising their right to speak before the commission, or all three? It is my understanding from the documents that the only persons notified were those doing the development and 2 businesses on Airline Highway, compared to more than a dozen property owners notified the last time. Mr. Dornier knows that I, like many others, was opposed to his tennis complex before, primarily because of traffic safety concerns associated with not providing access via the Airline Highway. The presently proposed contract has not changed my position. Please reject this proposed development again and protect the welfare and safety of the citizens. And as a realtor, if I had a young couple with 3 young children that were going to move into Perkins Oaks, and they would ask me if this was going to possibly affect the value of their property.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Milton Cluott.
Thank you, fellow commissioners. I appreciate you giving me the time to talk. My name is Milton Cluott, and I'm a former planning and zoning commissioner, and I was sitting on the commission when this project came before us. I had great concerns then, and I have great concerns now because I live in the area. But I have more concerns about allowing a development of any nature or this type of development to enter and exit from a residential area. When the development came before us the first time, I went and I walked the property, and I also walked the subdivision with a fellow commissioner to see, because it was never really any distinguished thing saying how he was going to access that property. So we walked it, and there was only two ways that he could possibly access it: through the subdivision road and Airline Highway. So at that time, Mr. Ron Duplessis, who owns the car dealership on Highway 44 and 30, promised me and said that he does have the land for sale. As of right now, I spoke to him, he called me yesterday, and he has said that he's willing to sell the land to the developer. So they have a way to get to the development from Highway 61. But more concern is that what if it happened in my subdivision? Or what if it happened in any one of you gentlemen's subdivision, that you get a telephone call one day that your kid or your grandkid was killed playing ball? We all know they play ball, and they walk in the road, and if anything happens, as you add more traffic, something is going to happen to those children or even an adult. But like I'm saying, when I walk the subdivision and I walk the property itself, it's a nice property in the back, but it's very, very low. It's a flooded prone property. It has some hills on it where they have raised it before. But more concern is the fact that they're going to use a subdivision road, which is a very narrow road, to access that property in and out during construction. And that should not happen. That should not happen at all, because someone will get hurt, and it's going to be a child. This commission needs to act before that happens. And the only way you can do that in acting now is not to allow that type of development to enter from any subdivision in Ascension Parish. Not just that particular subdivision, but any subdivision in the parish. That was one of the reasons why I voted no against the development, because they never did show any real reason or any real entrance to the subdivision itself. I apologize. I'm kind of, my throat, I just went through a serious operation. So, but don't let this happen. Don't let this happen, gentlemen. Please, don't let it happen.
Thank you, Mr. Cluott. Ms. Catherine Gumpelt.
Good evening again, Commissioners. After reviewing the paperwork for this contract, did you have a caution in your spirit? Opening up a dead-end subdivision street for a commercial business? The most important phrase in the contract is, quote, "In the event that the property is rezoned, this contract shall be subservient to the new zoning rules," end quote. Mr. Dornier attempted to rezone his property from medium residential RM to mixed use in 2011 and failed. Both the previous commission and council denied his request. Clearly, however, the rezoning option is still on his mind. Then he wanted to build tennis courts with access from Airline Highway and a restaurant in order to sell alcohol, make more money. But that's what businesses do. He couldn't do this with RM. A contract agreement, CA, is allowed in RM for recreational facilities. I suggested a CA as a possibility in 2011 at the meeting. Just like I or anyone else can build a swimming pool, volleyball, or basketball court on private property in RM without the sale of alcohol. Let's talk tennis. The dictionary defines tennis as a game played on a rectangular court by two players or two pairs of players equipped with rackets, in which a ball is driven back and forth over a low net that divides the court in half. Game is defined as an amusement or pastime, a competitive activity involving skill, chance, or endurance on the part of two or more persons who play according to a set of rules, usually for their own amusement or for that of spectators. I want you to look at Table A, permitted uses by district in the RM column. You put this on. Please, how do you get this thing? There we go. Good. Let's see. Okay. In the RN column, you will see a CA for recreational facilities, right here. And I've highlighted, however, in the same table, directly above, you will see both indoor and outdoor amusement and entertainment facilities are not allowed in RM. Notice that the space is blank. If tennis is a game played for amusement, and Mr. Dornier plans to build both indoor and outdoor courts, this is clearly not allowed in RM. The table contradicts itself. You can't have it both ways. The tables need to be cleaned up before a CA is negotiated. Nothing is said in the contract that it would forbid the owner or anyone else from bringing or consuming alcohol on the property while playing tennis, or to prevent Mr. Dornier from selling equipment and charging for lessons. Are you willing to trample on the property rights of citizens and risk their safety for a man who is unwilling to divulge his future business plans? Imagine yourself on Perkins Oak Road, seeing moms and their children riding bikes with training wheels on a narrow street with small lots. Now add tennis players, all hours of the day and night, who might be consuming alcohol. Deny this contract. The ball's in Mr. Dornier's court, not the parish, to secure the access for airline
Thank
highway.
you, Ms.
Thank
Gopel.
you.
Mr. Mark Allen?
I'm Mark Allen. I'm an engineer. I have 26 local contractors licensed in various states around here. I understand traffic. I understand water. I've appeared here 4 times. Randy, I'm the only person that's ever stood up here and said, I'm not for or against your property. Tonight, I'm against your property. If you told me there was 2 flags up there beside them seals, I wouldn't believe you. Everything we have been told about this property since day one is not the truth. We're going to be a class act. We're going to take care of this property. There's trees down. There's water in the ditches. I called him 4 weeks ago. I said, your front gate is tore down. I was going out for my afternoon walk. Here he was, picks up the gate, throws it over on the other side. Still laid open today, opens my house wide open. He come to me. I know why you bought the property. You were promised it would be rezoned by Martinez and by the other councilman at the time. You told me you'd get my road paved. None of this has happened. You could have avoided all this.
Mr. Allen, would you address the council, please?
All of this could have been avoided by putting contingency upon. Sign the contract, get it rezoned, and then he's gone. He's hung up with a piece of property. He cleared the property over in back of the feed store to his property. From the day he did it, our crime has tripled. You used to come down our street, no lights on it, nothing at night. Every light in the neighborhood is on, and every gun is loaded. Drainage. We want to talk about drainage. We see engineering studies. We can make a computer show what it looks like. Please look at page 1. I live right next to this subdivision. Page 2. That's my front yard Sunday afternoon. Page 3. See that drainage ditch? Remember that drainage ditch. Page 4. That's water up even with my driveway on January the 12th. That's not even the flood level that he run his deal on, 8 5/8 inches. The data's in the back. Page number 5. That's a picture looking down on it of my house and this property and Manchac Bayou. The circled area is what flooded that day, okay? It comes up my yard, up this way, over by the Whites when it backs up. It heads over to Greenbrier Estates and into St. Andrews. That's 5 1/2 inches. We modeled it at 8 5/8 and said no impact. Look at page 6. That's the left side of my house. Look at page 7. That's the same picture on January the 12th. Look at page 8. See duck box number 2? Look at page number 9, duck box number 2. Page 10. That's duck box 3, 4, and 5. Look at them on page 11. Look at them on page 12. Look at them on page 13, at duck box number 4. Look at it on number 14.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Next is, please excuse me for mispronouncing the name, Mr. Fu Vo? Was I close?
You're close.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Fu Vo. I'm a local podiatrist, and I'm just here to support the development in hope of growth and more community interactions.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Dr. Vincent Nguyen?
Hello, I'm Dr. Vincent Nguyen. I've lived in the parish for about 10 years. I'm an avid tennis player. I'm originally from Mississippi, and I like to say that in Mississippi, a lot of the tennis clubs are in subdivisions. I don't know why. Maybe the tennis club was built before, and the subdivision was built afterwards, or vice versa. But there's not a lot of traffic that goes through tennis clubs based on the amount of, from the data they showed. There's only maybe a 20% increase, but those are throughout the day and not during peak times at all. So I am supportive of the tennis facility and the use of the residential road. Granted that I have not walked down a road, drove down that road, so I'm just supporting the tennis facility and everything. Other things about point of sale I want to make a comment about. People don't go to the tennis clubs to buy tennis equipment per se. They're there and they need more water, they'll buy more water. They need Gatorade, they'll buy Gatorade. They're there and they need a tennis racket, or they broke a tennis racket, or they pop strings. That's what they're there. They just don't go there just to like a Walmart to buy it, or they go to there to buy the stuff per se. That doesn't increase the traffic because you don't go there for that purpose. And that's really all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jason Hawkins?
I'd like to speak on behalf of Jason Hawkins. My name is Brian Smith. I also live in Ascension Parish, and I play tennis several times a week. On a typical day, I drive to East Baton Rouge Parish and drive through a neighborhood, a very nice upper-class neighborhood, and play tennis. Ascension Parish doesn't really have a facility like this, and it's really a shame that I have people that live and represent my district that are so against having great facilities like this. Typically tennis players don't pose any kind of threat to general public or the population of society. Most of the people here that are representing the club are very good tennis players, and typically we don't go out drinking a whole bottle of Jack Daniels before a serious match. The fear tactics and fear-mongering stated tonight are beyond comprehensible to me. The trying to put fear in people, saying that feces are going to be going through the neighborhood. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. If anything, the tennis facility would add value to the neighborhood. Right next to your self-proclaimed 4-acre sewer treatment plant that is not far from your neighborhood. So in general, I would just like to say tennis is a great thing. It represents, it takes a lot to play it and be great at it, and people are typically dedicated tennis players. They're not just going out there boozing and acting crazy. So that's all I would like to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Taylor Latanzi. Okay.
Hello, my name is Taylor Latanzi. I grew up playing at the Gonzales Municipal Park. I have recently put on a 200-person tennis tournament with Darren Boone. We have a parking lot less than 50 parking spots, and out of 200 people and over 200 tennis matches, we have not come close to filling that parking spot. This facility will bring a lot of revenue from Baton Rouge and will also give us a really fancy place to play. Sewage and draining is not an option for this facility. It is a priority. I've never built a house, but if I do, I promise you it's not going to flood before I even finish building it. So this is a priority. And this facility has never brought up the option of selling alcohol. Out of playing tennis for the past 8 years, I've never drank and played or gone out after to drink. Let's see. And also after playing tennis, after your heart rate is over 150 beats per minute, playing for hours, you don't get tired. You don't fall asleep the second you get home. Your heart rate's up. You are excited. You're not tired. You're not falling asleep, especially on the ride home. And also, if this is a subdivision and your kids are playing in the street, why are people driving over 40 miles an hour? Or why are your kids in the street if people are driving 40 miles an hour? Which recently someone said while people were, or cops were radaring people. And also, the Gonzalez tennis courts have private lessons, and they also have an individual who strings rackets out of a trailer, and I don't see that as a business, even if it's owned by the state or the city. But I am for this. I would look forward to playing here and being a member, and that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Christy King.
Good evening. I really, in the beginning, was not going to bother your time to let you know that I supported this project, but after listening to this 3 hours of deliberation, I just wanted to say that I respect the fact that they're against change. We all are. If I had to gander, and I live 36135 Alligator Bayou, if I had to gander, all these people who live in that neighborhood in Old Perkins also signed the petition for no Walmart. But I bet they go to Walmart today. I bet when I sit at that crossroad of trying to take the left on Old Perkins, hey, people from your street come straight to Walmart. You go there. You've accepted the change. You fought it, but it is what it is. And that's when I sit there and when, I'm sorry I didn't catch his name, their councilman said, referred to Country Club Louisiana. I'm an active member there. I play tennis. It also is a dead end. You go in one way, you go out one way, just as Pelican Point, just as University Club, just as Southern Oaks, City Park, they're all in neighborhoods. I'm sure everyone in that neighborhood loves where they live. And the children, I get it. I live on Alligator Bayou. I have 50 bike riders at any given time going faster than I am in a car. LSU game day traffic. People cut through. Do I like it? I don't like it, but I could move if I didn't like it. It's in America. It is what it is. So I just wanted to say, support it. Tennis players are good people. We have a good time. Maybe get the kids off their bikes and on the tennis courts, and everybody like each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Hawkins.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Hawkins. I've lived in Ascension Parish for 4 years, and I'm here to support the tennis facility because I think it will be a good addition to the community. I don't think there's anything like it around here, and I just, I think that it's a good addition. Thanks.
Thank you. Eddie, is it Vigil? Okay.
My name is Eddie Vigil. I live at 18530 Plantation Court. Everybody's heard a lot about the driving, the traffic, and so forth. It's pretty tough in there. I've listened to Mr. Darnier's engineer, said it was not significant. So I've got a chart here that breaks down his exact figures. Let me see if I can figure out how to get this on. This. Nope, turned it off. Well, anyway, you can see the chart. Since you're looking at it, I'll explain it. This is his figures. It's the morning peak, Perkins Road, Oak Drive. The existing vehicular traffic volume is 45. His phase one trip would add 27. That's future vehicular traffic of 72 cars, which is a 60% increase. Afternoon traffic, 36 cars. Phase one adds 62, that's 98. A traffic increase of 172%. He says this is not significant. To me, that is significant. 172% increase when people already have problems with their driving. The combined totals existing is 81. His would bring 89. That's 170. So if you average morning and afternoon, 110% increase in traffic. That's his figures. This is broke down in percentage. Percentage means something. The other chart that I gave you is just a pie chart. I mean, a chart showing the same things, just in a little different format. I also gave you a picture that is an example of a car that's in the ditch, and look at the traffic on the road. That is the way the traffic is there almost any time of the day you want to go. And adding traffic to that type of traffic that's already there is really not a good idea, I think. So I'm asking that we not let this happen in that neighborhood going off of our small street through an existing neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Vigil. Next, we have Doc Satterley, refers to himself on this card as Citizen Doc Satterley.
Okay.
3 minutes, Mr. Satterley.
3 minutes? I wish to enter the emails that I just handed to Mr. Trefisi and signed statements of all 11 parish councilmen, myself included, expressing support in solidarity for denial of the Rain Rod contract agreement in its present form that proposes access and egress from the development from a subdivision road, Perkins Oak Drive. I thank my fellow councilmen for their careful deliberations and considerations, and trust me, you haven't seen anything tonight on this matter. The present council's view, however, should come as no surprise to this commission, as the previous council turned down essentially the same development proposal in an unanimous 8-0 vote in 2011. I wasn't serving then, had nothing to do with that vote. When Mr. Dornier falsely stated he had obtained access off the airline highway for his tennis complex, I was there that night. I've got ears. The council is composed of men and women, as you well know, in every one of this courtroom that are duly elected by the people all across the parish who have appointed each and every one of you. You should consider your seating appointments by the council as proof that we consider you to be fair-minded and thoughtful in making planning and zoning decisions. We are confident, gentlemen, that you will make the correct decision tonight and send a message that this project needs to have an outlet on US 61, the airline highway. I got 1:25, but I yield.
Thank you. I have in my hand the... Sure. I have in my hand the final speaker card. Mr. Jeff Rushing.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Rushing, a longtime resident of the Highway 427 Old Perkins area, having lived over 25 years just east of the railroad tracks on Magnolia Estates Lane, and the last 2 years just west of the tracks on Plantation Boulevard. Needless to say, I've seen tremendous change and growth in this area. I want to cite 2 traffic counts done on Highway 427. One is from June of 2012, conducted by Doc Satterley. This was done in reference to another matter before the same commission under zoning ID 2228.12, which some of you may recall. The other is by Neil Schaefer from February 19th, 2013, conducted for this proposed development. Doc did his traffic count 0.4 of a mile west of Perkins Oaks at the Magnolia Estates Old Perkins intersection. Page 2 of your handout shows a quarter-hour breakdown of eastbound and westbound traffic from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on June 11th, 2012. The 15-minute counts are as follows. Eastbound heading towards Airline Highway, 283, 263, 247, and 247 vehicles. Westbound heading towards the railroad tracks, 139, 138, 119, and 128 vehicles. As shown on page 3, this totals 1,544 total vehicles, a staggering 25.7 cars per minute, 1 car every 2 seconds. In this case, a majority moving eastbound. Page 4 is a morning count from June 12, 2012, from 7 a.m. till 8 a.m. The 15-minute counts are as follows. Westbound heading towards the tracks, 182, 177, 167, and 158 vehicles. And eastbound heading towards Airline, 80, 89, 108, and 107. As shown on page 5, this totals 1,068 total vehicles, 17.8 cars per minute, 1 car every 3 seconds. In this case, majority are moving westbound. The traffic survey conducted by Mr. Schaefer on February 19th at the Perkins Oaks intersections shows similar numbers as you can see on page 6. A count of 1,357 vehicles from 5 to 6 p.m. by Mr. Schaefer, whereas Doc counted 1,544. And an almost exact number in the AM with Mr. Schaefer counting 1,072 vehicles compared to Doc's count of 1,068. Mr. Schaefer counted from 6:45 a.m. to 7:45, Doc from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. I might also point out the weather records for Prairieville on the day of Mr. Schaefer's count show 0.3 of an inch of rain. Doc counted on a clear, sunny day. For our personal safety and quality of life, we simply cannot afford any more traffic near daily peak rush hours on Old Perkins Road. I'd like to enter these comments into the official meeting record.
Thank you, Mr. Rushing. That concludes our public hearing, so I will now close the public hearing. And let me express my thanks to the audience. I think this was done very well. It was done in a very respectful, thoughtful manner, and we received a lot of information, so we appreciate the input from all of you. At this point, I'd like Mr. Dornier to come back up, and if you'd like to make any final comments or take any questions from the commissioners.
Thank you. Yes. The fact is, as political as our opponents would like this to be, it's simply not a political thing. It's not something to make political points over. We're here for a contract agreement. It's plain and simple. It's for the allowed usage under the current zoning. You heard a lot of arguments from people who are arguing why we should not have this rezoned. And guess what? I agree. We're not asking to be rezoned. I'd like, I know that they want to revisit us being denied for rezoning, which I'm sure makes sense because they won that fight. But this is something completely different. It's a different, we're asking for a different number of courts, a different use, and just under the contract agreement. What we needed to do for a private club was have a drainage study. We had that done. It's been approved. We need to have a traffic study. We had that done by a professional company, and it's been approved. We even went so far, and you can see that we went ahead and did lighting and landscaping. Let's go ahead and cover all of our bases, even though it wasn't needed to do, just to show that we had that. Like I said, this contract agreement has nothing to do with the previous rezoning that we were asking for. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of any commissioners?
2 questions. Earlier, again, I asked the question, is this a commercial venture? And I think someone said no. I don't know. I consider this almost semantic. Doesn't sound like a residential venture.
Right.
So, commercial. And also, the thoroughfare that we're talking about, is this a narrow road?
Yeah, it's relatively, I suppose.
Do we know how
I
wide?
don't drive it every day, but do you know how wide?
Do we know how wide it is?
Yes.
I mean,
We have our traffic engineer. I can tell you how wide the road is.
It's probably between 18 to 20 foot wide. It's it's a typical rural roadway.
A new road.
That being said, the concern I have here is, one of our initial tenements, master plan, principle number 1, protect public safety property, protect the public safety property values by providing adequate separation of industrial, commercial, residential uses. Commentary, central challenge in Ascension Parish is to protect the public safety, health, from major challenges. There are 5 of them. One of them concerns me, the growth of traffic on a narrow road system.
And that's why we had the traffic study done.
And the traffic study says, well, how many vehicles?
Negligible
do you project?
The
Almost
existing
500?
count on the roadway is 470 plus vehicles on a daily, on an average work
Now.
day. The additional traffic to be generated based on limited studies for this type of facility would approximately double that number. But I will say this, for a 2-lane facility, that amount of traffic is not a lot of daily traffic for that type of roadway. 1,000 vehicles a day for a 2-lane roadway is not a large volume.
What's the width of our typical sections now if we were to lay a new road in Ascension Parish? What is it?
22 feet, 23 feet with curb and gutter. This road is listed as 20 feet on our road list.
That's back of curb to back of curb, or travel lane, that's 12.5-foot lanes?
This is just an asphalt.
It's just the actual travel lanes.
With no curb or gutter.
This one's 18 to 20 foot with no curb. Okay.
It's now.
Define it in there.
Other questions of commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, can I make some comments?
No, sir, I'm sorry.
I have some.
We understand narrow roads.
I just have some comments. There were, I have a question of the audience, I guess, that there were some objections not related to traffic, like the perpetual servitude issue. Can the staff address that? Did you understand that?
Well, I understand the perpetual
right,
servitude. I have
is
no
that
idea why she was bringing it up.
Okay, I'm
this
missing
contract-
that point also. What's the point?
I don't know. They came up and wrote a lot of dictionary definitions too. I don't know why they did that. This project is not within the servitude. So,
Okay.
I really don't, I couldn't tell you.
All right, that was a little confusing to me. I also wanted to ask if anyone objected to this facility if access was from Airline Highway. Because there were some other objections that were related to flooding and, well, flooding primarily, I guess.
Yeah, I'd like to see a show of hands of anyone rejecting.
And vandalism, right.
Yeah.
So generally, with some exceptions, obviously, if the access was off of Airline, okay, you'd probably live with it, because, you know. But I'm not going to speak for all the commissioners, but I will say I suggest that we'd probably all rather see access from Airline Highway. It would, I think, solve 95% of this issue. But I think we may have a quandary unless this can be resolved. We do have an approved drainage study. And let me say that, preface this, my comments first by saying this. I completely sympathize with the residents on Perkins Oak. I don't necessarily sympathize or agree with all the comments that were made regarding increased traffic. I think there's probably more traffic from Walmart on one Saturday than there is from a tennis facility in 6 months. And I know you know that's true. And I'm not saying there is a lot of traffic on Perkins. That's true. And we do need traffic improvements. I should get on my grandstand now and say we need to pass a tax to improve traffic conditions in Ascension Parish, but that's, you know, neither here nor there now, I guess. But I guess what I'm saying is you've been talking in terms of the traffic study saying there's 110% increase in traffic. The fact is, it's a fraction of the total traffic on Perkins Road. A fraction. I don't know what the number is. Neil, maybe the guy from Neil Schaefer can educate us on that. So I don't you know, I do say that I sympathize with the people on Perkins Oak. It's a fairly narrow road. I don't think it's overburdened with the current traffic, and as the guy from Neil Schaefer suggested, it probably wouldn't be overburdened with this. I'd be concerned about speeding and safety for other reasons, not because it's too much traffic, but because people tend to speed. They speed through my subdivision. They live there. So we put up 15-mile-an-hour speed limits, and they still speed, you know. So that's another issue. But I think knowing, like I said, playing tennis and knowing tennis players, they're pretty responsible people. I trust them more than I trust golfers, for sure. Anyway.
Careful now.
Here's our quandary, I think, as a commission, and I'd like other commissioners to chime in. We have an approved drainage study. We have drainage problems in Ascension Parish, but I'm satisfied as an engineer that the drainage study suggests this will not make the drainage in that area worse. I have to believe my own education and my own experience with that in the study that was done. We have an approved traffic study. There are a lot of numbers being thrown around, but it does suggest that traffic, well, I think the language in the executive summary was, let's see, the development will not have a significant impact on the roadway network in the vicinity of the site. The proposed development will not significantly increase existing intersection delays at Perkins Road. So, okay, we've got that. And then unless it's shown that putting this kind of facility is against the parish ordinance. Now, and Ms. Goppold, I like to argue with you anyway. It's a stretch to suggest a tennis court is not a recreational facility. I don't know where that comes from. As far as I'm concerned, we're talking about a recreational facility, whatever you might call it, by almost any definition. But unless it's shown to be against parish ordinance for this type of facility, our quandary is, except for the emotional appeal of everybody who's sitting here, I don't know I don't know what legal position we have to deny a contract. I'd like to, I mean, well, we have an attorney here, we can ask. And I'm saying that, I guess what I'm saying is.
Please.
Yeah, I get that. We all do. Like I said, we're all sympathetic with what's going on here. And why and how this came about to be this way, I don't know. I know that in 2011, I don't know what changed, whether the original proposal was to include a restaurant or whatever it's called, commercial. Maybe I can ask the staff. What has changed from 2011, March 2011, when this was denied? It was called a commercial development in this district. Well, no, I take that back. It was, the applicant is proposing to construct tennis courts, parentheses, commercial, on the requested property. What has changed since then?
Exactly. Phase one. The applicant desires to put some tennis courts on the ground and to start a business. And if that business is tremendously successful, he's going to do everything in his power to remove the sewage lagoon, to gain access from Airline Highway, and extend beyond phase one and go back to the council for a rezoning request so that he can get those commercial uses, i.e. the restaurant, the pro shop, the health club, all the other stuff that was in the original application, which is why he requested the rezone the first time.
Okay.
If I could add to that.
Yes, go ahead.
I think I know that you already know, but maybe it would help people to hear that we can't just up and do that. The process for that would be the rezoning process, and everybody's pretty familiar with that. It's not like you can just wake up one day and say, oh, we're doing the rest of the project.
Right, that would require rezoning to do any more than that. All of those things are not in this contract, correct? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Nizar?
I listened to Mr. Chafisi's comments. I have several problems with this situation, and I think, first and foremost, this presentation was presented almost 2 years ago originally, and it was stated, and I was not on this commission at that time, but I was privileged to hear the discussion by the whole commission, and it seems to me at that time, the discussion about the airline highway access was a major issue at that time. And here we are 2 years later, and admittedly, he's telling us that no negotiations are ongoing. 2 years is a long time to settle those negotiations, I believe, if they were intended to happen. The completed project currently indicates access solely through Perkins Oak Drive, and with the possibility of it being accessed from 61. Looking at the traffic study that I was given just 2 days ago, the completed project, if it should reach all phases, indicates what I seem to see in excess of possibly 300 parking slots with an overflow area set aside for overflow traffic. Now, this was in the traffic study that was sent to us. In addition to that, honestly, other than breaking it up in phases, I only see that as the only change and nothing else. Since the last judgment was rendered against this project, I don't understand why I should view this in a different light simply because we're breaking it up. While I can't argue Mr. Trefisi's points that, you know, we may not, our parish ordinance may not give us any option to prevent this from an ordinance standpoint, I do believe that, you know, the residents of Perkins Oak, located there with the expectations of the living conditions that they at least currently have, and for the most part, that's what they want. They've made it clear to at least me at this point that that voice should carry a lot of weight with this commission when dealing with this matter. And Perkins Oak Drive is just a small, I'm gonna call it a 2-lane, 25-mile-per-hour subdivision road. And I'm quite sure it was never, ever intended for it to be an access to a commercial business. And certainly, living in a newly developing subdivision at this time, like I do, I can sympathize with the concerns that they have about the traffic during construction, because I'm in a subdivision that's less than 3 years old, and our roads are already deteriorating because of the heavy construction traffic as it is. So I know what they're talking about, and I can see into the future because I see it presently in my condition. I think development and growth and new ideas are always good in the parish, and I'm all for it. But I do believe that our most vital concern, like Mr. Jackie said, is that we should consider the safety and the quality of life, and above all, the wishes of the people most affected by our decisions. That should be the forefront of our discussion. I've heard all their voices and of the residents, and I honestly believe that at this point, it would be a mistake for us to accept this contractual agreement unless we can be assured that access will be entered and that the access would be there going into it and away from it through Airline Highway. In the completed plans that I received, it states that if access is ever achieved to 61, they would still seek emergency access through Perkins Oak Drive. I personally would not support any use of Perkins Oak Drive for this facility. And I'm going to ask that, barring any further discussion, I'd like to make a motion, but I'll wait to see if there's any further discussion.
Okay, let's complete our discussion. First, any other, Mr. Burgess?
I'd like to make 2 comments. One, I would like to ask if the gentleman in the blue shirt back there is Second Lieutenant Lambert, by any chance? No? Negative, okay. Then I'll rescind my first comment. Yes, it does. My comment is along the lines of what we heard here today. I am not opposed to recreational facilities. I think we need more of them in the parish. However, I see absolutely no reason of any kind to move that kind of traffic and give access through a subdivision, access has to be from airline, period.
Let's, please recall my comments about the pep rally and,
Payless Lake Road.
okay. Any other
I
comments?
have a comment. Yeah, I have
Mr.
a couple of
Trevisi?
comments. One, Mr. Satterley, Councilman Satterley, this is quite a grassroots movement. I think it's time for you to run for governor. Now, obviously, you can garner the votes. And the other thing was that a few people spoke of the developer as having a credibility issue, and that's a little bit concerning, too. I am concerned, though, that this commission does the right thing, and yeah, we do want to do the right thing by the people. Of course we do. We want to make sure, though, that we don't jeopardize, put the parish and this commission in jeopardy by doing something which we shouldn't do. So I probably would like more clarity on what the implications are if we were to not approve this tonight. I'm not sure if Ms. Amanda would be prepared to discuss that tonight. We haven't discussed that issue. But I am a little bit concerned about that.
If the commission chooses to deny the contract agreement, it's important that you articulate a reasonable health, safety, and welfare issue. I do want to caution you because the parish council enacted the ordinance that requires the traffic study and the drainage study. So since those both passed the muster of the ordinance, I don't believe that either of those would be a reasonable basis. But just if you do decide to deny, you need to be clear and articulate, and it's got to be reasonable. I don't know if that helps you very much, but.
Thank you. Any other comments?
About a narrow street and our principles, protecting the public from overloading what we define as a narrow street.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think when it comes time to make a motion, however the motion is done, it should articulate very specific reasons.
You know, being an engineer myself, I am all for technical reports, all into it. But they're, sometimes they don't reflect everything that we need to consider. The report by Neil Schaefer, very well done, by the way, shows the impact study primarily at the intersection and shows the additional load on the neighborhood street. But I drove down that street, too. It's very narrow. Ditches, shallow ditches, but ditches on either side. Not really a lot of room to walk. No sidewalks, right? No sidewalks. No, okay. Can't remember. I'm trying to remember now. Typical rural road, and I would be if I lived on the street. Like I said, I don't care really about anybody who lives in the surrounding neighborhoods. I don't think that is as much of an issue, but certainly the people who live on the street have something to be concerned about. Loading through traffic on the street, not just additional traffic. I mean, if you had all the houses full and you all had company for Thanksgiving, you'd still have a lot of traffic. But through traffic's a little different, and it does present an additional hazard, I think, to the residents. As I said, people who live in my subdivision drive through too fast to get to the back. So I share some concerns with the rest of the commission.
Any other comments? Okay, according to the ordinance, the zoning commission shall take one of the following actions upon closing of the public hearing. First option is accept the contract as submitted. Second option, accept the contract subject to specified conditions not included in the contract as submitted. Or the third option is reject the contract. Mr. Burgess.
I move for rejection based on the grounds that I believe this contract as defined today with access from someplace other than airline poses a significant danger to the residents of that area.
Been moved by Mr. Burgess.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Callender.
Discussion.
Discussion?
The second option was a change.
Was accept the contract subject to specified conditions not included in the contract as submitted.
Would the specified conditions be access from airline highway?
almost deem a whole new contract, it seems.
Well, I don't know.
Possibly.
I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking the question. Lindsay, can you shed some light on that?
I think you could impose that, but that doesn't mean that the applicant would be willing or able to agree to it.
I get that. Sure. Well, obviously, he hasn't been able to yet.
But it's an option.
But he could come back
But he could come back.
and propose it with those conditions later. He could propose a new contract if this was rejected. Okay.
Well, Mr. Burgess, is your motion saying that we should reject it because of a safety issue on
Yes.
Perkins Oak?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that part of the motion?
It
Yes,
was.
it was part of the motion. Seconded by Mr. Keller. Any other discussion? All in favor of that motion, rejecting the contract, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. The contract is rejected. Next item is a public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish Unified Development Code. Let's take a break here while we have some transition.
I'm not either. We're going to get sued.
I don't think so. But you take something. The last thing you said about even a future development.
On the street, Safety on that street.
Well, I mean,
That was very well put.
I see no reason to go to the subdivision because
When airlines right.
actually the future development, if you look at that traffic study, they said, yes.
I mean, if you lived on the street, would you want that tennis complex?
Over 350 cars.
I wouldn't want through traffic.
In addition to.
Yeah.
They came back.
I love this thing.
It just
Circled it.
It'd be perfect. Ascension Parish needs a facility like that.
I know that guy.
I'm looking down the road.
I don't think we're gonna have legal.
But then also.
I want this facility, but it's got to come from someplace else. It's got to be walled off. I mean, it'd be a great.
We just put speed bumps in. I was gonna tell them that. Put speed bumps in. 'Cause that's work. Our HOA just did it.
It's not,
Yeah.
you can't compare.
HMO got to put a
HOA.
private streets.
We paid $430 for 4 speed bumps.
All right, please go ahead and clear the room if you're not going to stay for the rest of the meeting. We're on to agenda item 6, a public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish Unified Development Code, LDC Table A, permitted uses by district, recommendation from the Strategic Planning Commission to amend Table A, permitted uses by district to allow enclosed car washes as a permitted use in mixed-use 2 zoning district, and to revise Table A under mixed use to state enclosed car wash, auto service stations, and unenclosed car wash. And let's get to the paperwork here. Buried underneath.
Everybody regroup, huh?
Yeah, we got to regroup. We got papers everywhere.
May take a minute or two to find this.
Here,
Here, no, I've got it. Okay.
It's just a simple change.
I'll say, because what we're doing is adding a land use category to the mixed use 2 zoning. And so this is an enclosed car wash, auto service stations and car wash. Wait, okay, I'm confused
So
now.
we're just
Revised,
adding-
we're adding what?
We're just adding enclosed car washes?
That's correct. We're adding enclosed car washes to MU2, but in doing that, we need to define an MU and those other districts unenclosed, I guess you could say, right.
So it allows car washes today?
Enclosed, right. Yes, sir.
Just doesn't
Yeah.
specify them?
Right.
Feels like a lot of redundancy.
Yeah.
It's hard to follow.
Basically, the strategic planning sent to the zoning commission to change the zoning category MU2 to allow car washes as a permitted use. But underneath the car washes, it stated that it's recommended the planning commission to allow enclosed car washes. Right now, what we just have car washes. We don't define them as enclosed and unenclosed. So the strategic planning sent to you or sent to the zoning commission a request to change the zoning tables in MU2 to allow enclosed car washes.
Was there a particular instance or something that prompted this?
Yes, sir.
What,
There's some, from what it states, he states in the minutes that he stated that he had two constituents in the past 2 months call about placing enclosed car washes on 42 and 73. And I think they may be here, the owners are the ones that called. I think they may be in the audience.
Can we define what enclosed, I mean, I think I know what it means.
Yeah.
There's one on 73 that I use
That's correct. Yeah,
today.
right. It would be something like
In
that.
fact,
It's nothing
something
where.
like that. It's a single bay,
And-
completely automatic car wash.
Correct. It wouldn't be like, I'm going to use the only one I can think of. There's one on Airline right next to 621 where people drive in and you go out and you have a wand and you use it.
Right.
It's not going to include that. It's going to include enclosed, in which just what Mr. Chafisi stated. It's going to be a lane that you go in, it does what it does, automated, and then you move on.
Do we define that anywhere,
That's-
Lance?
that's the
I mean,
question.
can we better define?
Yeah, we can better define it, yes, sir. The way that it was stated, and I guess it should, that's the way it was stated from the strategic planning to you was enclosed.
And would it be a single?
Yes,
enclosed
we
car
could,
wash
yes,
per-
we can define it better, yes, sir.
So right now it says unenclosed car wash. It specifically states unenclosed car wash.
Right now, it just says car wash, it
Well,
doesn't give
So why can't
enclosed.
this be defined under just car wash?
Under car wash. What, is there any
Why?
specific language that prevents an enclosed car wash under what
Why
we
we have
currently have?
No, sir, but what it does is that, I understand, yeah, we could do that, yes, we could just put enclosed underneath MU2. But when we, yes, I'm thinking out
Yeah,
loud,
and
so-
instead of
can't it
a
include-
change,
Right.
we could just add
It
enclosed.
it would be a change, but yes, we would just
Right.
add another table.
Table.
Yes, sir, and then put that in that MU2 district.
And obviously an enclosed car wash just can't categorize itself somewhere under car wash as it sits now. I mean, obviously y'all approached us because there's a problem, so.
Well, I'm going to state that I don't know if there's a problem. I'm just going to state that the strategic planning sent this to you to do this.
They
or
want to
make this
ensure
hearing.
that this is okay.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't find a place for it.
I think we could probably get by, Lance, like you just mentioned, if we include, if we need to, if there is a problem in the language, enclosed car wash as well as car wash. I mean, or have car wash include enclosed and enclosed.
Yeah, car
I
wash,
mean,
comma.
Yeah.
Closed and enclosed.
Parentheses.
So
Yeah,
one of
something.
the owners might have a
Yeah.
statement.
Let's go ahead and,
Right.
let's go ahead and open the public hearing. At the risk of the prior public hearing lasting 2 hours, let's hope this one gets done before midnight. But I'll fill out a card either now or later, Kevin, and
All right, my name is Kevin Wild, and we would like to place an enclosed car wash, and we would like to define it as enclosed because a car wash could mean an automatic like Benny's where it's a full-blown deal. It could be a self-serve wand bay type where you drive in and you do it yourself. A car wash could be like the one on 73 where it's an automatic. And what we'd like to do is define this because there's a piece of property that we'd like to put one on that in MU2 it just says car wash. And that means no car wash on MU2. And if you look at the zoning maps, a lot of the highways and everything like 42 are mainly zoned MU2. And so what we would like to do is put a automatic car wash there, just like very similar, a little nicer, very similar to the one on 73. And that's why we decided to see if we could maybe change it from just car wash to actually enclosed car wash. And that's the definition that we came up with for like the automatic in-bay would be an enclosed.
Well, question, Kevin, is there anything currently in the regulations that would prevent you from putting this enclosed car wash on a piece of property you have currently?
Yes.
Under MU2?
Under MU2.
it's
MU2
not
does-
allowed under MU2?
The MU2 does not allow car washes.
Any kind of car wash?
Any kind of car wash.
Okay, it makes sense.
Now we understand.
Now we get
We're all on the same page.
All right, now
Okay.
we understand.
Right.
Okay.
And
I
this
got
would
it.
Well,
Okay.
glad you are to wash off.
This would
It-
define car
understand.
washes. and that-
Right, I was
Okay.
under the impression that we
No,
could
no,
allow
I
car
say
washes,
no.
not enclosed car
No,
washes.
this,
Okay.
it's not permitted at all in MU2.
Okay, now I understand.
All right.
We're slow, but we're not that slow.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're good.
Then I'm in.
And strategic planning has sent this to us with their blessing?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, no.
Yeah, it's with their blessing.
Okay, it is 9:45. I would entertain a motion here.
I vote for whatever gets us out of here right now. No, I move that we approve the recommendation of the staff.
Second by Mr. Callender. Any objection?
No, can't do
Motion-
that? Oh,
Okay. Motion passes. Next item is staff report. Let's have a brief staff report. Thank you. Next item is number 8, adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, meeting's adjourned.
Second that.